the Liquor Control Board meeting. Please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance, led by Deputy Mayor Thomas Renner.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All right. Welcome, Jenny.
Good evening, everyone. So those are the licenses. Specs is no longer conditional because they have their inspection, so
Great.
just waiting on the other ones.
Yes, renewals for Specs, Capiche Inc., and Downworry Korean, conditional on those inspections being approved.
Added a third class, yeah.
Okay. Any questions from council?
No?
Hearing no wait. Any public comment? Let me just check if there's anyone on Zoom. No, okay. All right, hearing no concerns, would someone like to make a motion to approve the consent agenda for liquor control?
So moved.
Motion by Charlie, second by Thomas. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion
Thank
carries,
you.
thank you. And that's the end of liquor control. Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Brent, second by Thomas. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Meeting adjourned. Okay. It is 6:01 p.m. I will call to order the city council meeting. First up is agenda review. Any questions, concerns about the order of tonight's agenda?
I would like to entertain possibility to move item F up in the agenda, perhaps after item B.
Any concerns for staff?
Nope.
All right. Moving F to position C. Do I have a motion to update the
So
agenda?
moved.
Second?
All those in favor, please say aye.
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 All right, can do.
Appreciate you catching that. We sent it out, and then I was like, I should have relooked at that, so.
No worries, I wasn't sure if there was actually a reasoning.
There was
but
not.
thought it might be helpful to have it a little earlier.
Okay. Next up would be public comment. You guys are here for an agenda item. I think
That's what
there's-
they just moved up, by the way.
Yeah, no one online. Okay. Consent agenda, we have our council minutes from January 13th, accounts payable warrant January 15, subsequent to payout warrant for November, and the position title change from SRO to DLO. Any concerns about the consent agenda?
No,
Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
so moved.
Second?
Motion by Brent, second by Charlie. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Motion carries. Council reports. Charlie, want to kick us off?
Sure. Just a quick update. The Winooski Housing Commission joint meeting with the Planning Commission has been canceled for tomorrow night. The Winooski Housing Commission will meet next Tuesday at 6 p.m. as regularly scheduled. There's a hybrid option available via the city website. Hope to see you guys there.
Thank you.
Downtown Winooski met since we last all met. However, they did not have a quorum. They discussed a few things, just general ideas and thoughts for the upcoming season. A lot of the conversation followed the presentation that Melissa gave to us when she was here. What was it, last Monday? Gosh. Discussions about the possibility of changing the makeup of the winter farmers market. As Melissa said, it wasn't as popular as Downtown Winooski would have hoped, and also the vendors would have hoped. So maybe looking at doing something that's more event driven for that, and that may not happen every single weekend. Also spoke about trying to boost Halloween because it was such a big turnout this year, so extending the celebrations and having more events. They are also, just because this is something council has been apprised of, their IRS 501c3 status is still sitting with the IRS, likely on somebody's desk. So Melissa continues to check in on that, as she has filed all the paperwork, but hopefully that will move along so that we can obtain the 501c3 status and won't have to go through the city to try to get grants, because there are some things that it's still, even with the city thankfully acting as their I forget the terminology for that
Fiscal
one.
agent, yeah.
Fiscal agent. There are still some things that it's harder for them to apply for, even with that, the city doing that for them. So yeah.
Thank you. I attended the Chittenden County Regional Planning Commission meeting last week. 2 updates that may be relevant. The CCRPC's Equity and Accessibility Committee members are engaging in advocacy to state legislators for Green Mountain Transit and public transit funding. And the Bridge Project team hosted a focus group with youth associated with AALV to share updates and gather design input.
Awesome.
That is it for me.
Is planning commission meeting this week?
Oh, yeah, thanks. Thursday, 6:30 p.m. in council chambers or on Zoom.
Okay, thank you. We have a Chittenden Solid Waste District meeting tomorrow evening. It'll be online or in person at their offices in South Burlington. Agenda items include introducing the new finance director, reviewing enforcement hearing process, and legislative changes required for open meeting law. So, should be a light agenda. That's all.
All right. Councilor Hurd.
There don't have any big updates. We're going to do some meetings at buildings of the Winooski Housing Authority to give updates on the budget. So those are going to come up in, I believe the first ones are this week. So that's exciting. And then Inclusion and Belonging isn't meeting until February
Okay.
at its regular meeting time.
That's it for council reports. City updates. Elaine.
Just a note, I think the Equity Advisory Committee at our Regional Planning Commission is now called the Community Engagement Advisory Committee.
They did do a name change and I forgot it. Thank you.
All right, so after tonight's meeting, we should be done with the first part of Winooski's annual budget process. If the City Council votes to approve the presented budget tonight, residents who still have questions can still attend our annual city and school district budget presentations. You can join the community dinner budget presentation on Tuesday, February 4th, starting at 4 p.m. at the O'Brien Community Center. More details will be announced soon. Or the city and school district budget presentation at the Winooski School District Performing Arts Center. That's at 6 p.m. on March 3rd, 2025. That is the night before town meeting day election. After these presentations, residents will vote on town meeting day, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. at the Winooski Senior Center. To register and learn more about voting in Winooski, please visit winooskivt.gov/vote. Speaking of town meeting day, those interested in running for local office, positions include 2 city council seats, 2 school board seats, and a school treasurer seat. These must file their petition with at least 30 signatures and paperwork by 5 p.m. on Monday, January 27th. Please visit the news update section of our website at winooskivt.gov to learn more, or you can stop by the city clerk's office Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. Or you can call our email at 655-6410 or clerk@winooskivt.gov. And finally, it is time to register your dog. All dogs owned in the city of Winooski must be registered with the city clerk on or before April 1 of each year per state and city laws. To get started, you can stop by the city clerk's office at Winooski City Hall at 27 West Allen Street. Again, those hours are Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. If you have questions, or you can call or email, again, that's 655-6410 or clerk@winooskivt.gov.
All right, thank you. Moving into our regular items. First up, the public hearing to receive comment on the proposed fiscal year 2026 budget and capital plan. So a public hearing has been noticed for the consideration of the proposed fiscal year 2026 budget and capital plan across all funds. At this time, I'd like to open the public hearing. I don't see any members of the public on Zoom. Do either of you wish to make a public comment about the budget? Okay. Seeing no public comment, I will now close the public hearing, and we will move on to item B. On for discussion or approval. we, last week, came to a decision on a budget to present. Does anyone have any follow-up questions, concerns, discussion? Or does someone want to make a motion to approve?
It seems the community is very excited about this budget.
Yes.
That's a good sign.
I will make a motion.
I have a motion to approve.
Second?
Motion by Thomas, second by Charlie. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Motion carries. Thank you. Okay, I think we moved F up to after B, but should we do C first? The town meeting day warning?
That seems to make
Sure, I
sense.
have a clarifying question for that, so.
Okay, we'll do C and then we'll do F. Okay. So item C for discussion approval, the town meeting day election warning. Jenny, do you have any intro you'd like to do?
No, I'm all set with this. Hopefully.
Yes, we're just voting on the actual warning and language that will be shared. You had a question?
Yeah, so council's not meeting next week, and the petitions,
You are meeting next week.
The public hearing, just
Mhm.
cause.
Are we?
Monday, right?
Oh, yeah. I do have that on my calendar.
okay,
Yeah, every Monday in January.
so that may make that a moot question. So, since we are meeting next week, I'll rephrase it. Will we be asked to vote on what we'll be going to, does it make sense to table this until next week when we know the candidate names that will potentially be on the ballot?
I haven't put that in before.
Okay.
I just put the number of seats.
Okay, and that meets, obviously, it meets the minimum requirements?
Yeah, and, I mean, that's your main question, but again, to remind everybody, you do have to set the rest of the warning today, or else you'd have to warn another meeting for later this week to meet other deadlines.
Okay.
In Article 1, we have all the city council terms. There's school board election too. Do we have to warn it?
That's on their
That's
warning.
just, okay. I just didn't know because it's all one
Yes.
ballot, so I don't know if we had to.
It's on the ballot, but they warned their
They warned
meeting,
them. Okay.
yes.
Counselor Hurd?
Very quick, and apologies if this already came through email. I've been having some trouble accessing it. In Article 4, Section C, Part 3, there are 2 3s there. So this is just like a very
Oh, yeah.
quick grammatical or formatting item. Otherwise, looks good.
Oh, thank you.
Okay.
Thanks for catching that ahead of time rather than after printing. We would have felt very silly.
Do I have a motion to approve with the one edit?
So moved.
Second?
Motion by Thomas, second by Bryn. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Motion
Aye.
carries. Thank you,
Thank
Jenny.
you.
Okay, so we'll move next to item F for discussion approval, the Winooski Small Business Loan Committee application recommendation. Elaine, you want to introduce?
Sure, feel free to come up, yeah. Yes, yeah, this is so that the town meeting TV and folks out there can hear. So the city had some interest and inquiry from the applicant, Steinmetz PLLC. We referred them to Opportunities Credit Union, and they did a review, and they actually came back with a recommendation that the city not award the loan, but that if it was, it would be Tier 3. There's currently 4 tiers to that program. The Winooski Small Business Loan Committee, which is currently comprised of entirely staff because the one community member termed, and we haven't gotten new applicants yet. And also haven't advertised just yet. So we met last week and discussed it, and actually do recommend that the loan application be granted. There's some other information in the packet, and the scoring criteria that the staff uses once the loans come to us. They scored above the minimum threshold, so the minimum is 6 points out of 12, and they scored, we scored them 9 points. It turns out actually it should have been 8 points because of the number of employees, but again, that's still over the threshold. We also did not change the amount that we recommended from the loan request, which was for the full 75,000 limit that we have for that program. Yeah, they provide a lot of supplemental information that I shared with council individually, by email rather than full in public. And yeah, are there any questions that council has about this application, or would you like to hear from the applicants?
I would say, like, if there's any, like, process or questions about the recommendation from staff, we could direct those to Elaine, and then we could move to hearing from the applicants.
Sure. So I tried to attend the meeting on Thursday. It was really hard to hear. Would you mind just describing your business venture?
Not at all. It's actually a couple different parts. I'm a real estate broker here in the state, and she is an interior designer, and we're both consultants. And so we would kind of have a Venn diagram there of overlapping services. But the main thing is that we want to open up down where the commodity space used to be, like 2 years ago, a showroom for the design and some brokerage offices. What I miss?
Well, the heart of it, really,
Yeah.
which is focusing on wellness in our spaces, taking a more conscientious approach to how we live and where we live, and also putting more thought around how we approach the market, the real estate market. So specifically targeting New American and BIPOC families who have been historically marginalized in the market by engaging in a lot of education courses. We're partnering with ALV, Racial Justice Alliance, and other community-based organizations to do that, as well as just doing the level of hand-holding that is needed for folks who are not really conversant with the ins and outs of real estate, and as well as design. So I have a YouTube channel that is quickly growing, and we'll be doing more of just expounding on what it is to live what we call the wellness life, which is making our spaces support our well-being. And to the showroom, so we want to layer income streams so that we can buffer against what we have historically experienced. So when we ventured into starting the brokerage, going independent, that was when the market hit with the high interest rates, and that really impacted us negatively, being new players in the field. So, but that also opened us up to exploring other ways that we can layer our business. And so we have the interior design services, but if that doesn't do so really well, we also have the showroom and shop, which is going to sell products, and on top of that, we are also doing consulting. As you well know, we are partnering with the city on a couple of projects. And so we are just very invested in the well-being of our community, and we want to support in whatever capacities we can.
One thing that came up during the committee meeting, you mentioned helping renters. Could you talk a bit about that?
Yeah, so there's not hardly any brokers or brokerages that really work with renters. I've been lucky enough to actually work at Keens Crossing last year, and and a little bit the year before that, and kind of saw firsthand the hardship that a lot of people are going through, just being able to find some kind of roof over their head. So the renting aspect on top of sales and investments will serve the whole community, as well as helping folks pool their resources, education, like Ruth mentioned, just kind of taking a different approach, and not telling people no so much as just like working with them until they're ready to find the right place. So the conventional realtor would be like, do you have enough money? No? Then call me when you do. Versus my approach would be, do you have enough money? Not yet. Let's find a way to get there.
Well, I have some questions. Thanks for sharing in more detail. I like the vision and concept. I wanted to follow up on some of the items that the credit union raised in their recommendation to not approve. So the first item in there was that this is a roughly $300,000 project. You're seeking $200,000 in funding from financial institutions, and it was unclear where the rest of that money would come from to move this forward.
So we've actually been speaking with Community Capital Vermont down in Barrie. They've been really responsive. We've also been speaking with VITA, who's, I don't remember what that acronym stands for, but Vermont something.
Vermont Economic Development Agency.
Thank you very much. And they've told us that they can actually secure a pretty large sum. But it all kind of hinges on this to kind of get the first domino to fall. Everyone else is waiting to hear if this gets approved.
Yeah, and with VITA, they are going to approach funding with an SBA backing because of the lack of capital. And we did make it clear in our financials as well as our narrative that we need $200,000 to break even. That $300,000 is really what will get us through the year comfortably, and without us having to worry much on the financial aspect. And the sources and uses match up to the $300,000. But we modulate and adjust based on what we can get with the stacking, with 200,000 being the minimum.
And so with VITA and the other agency, why wasn't that included in the full picture that the credit union received from you?
I'm not sure.
I feel like we definitely told them.
Yeah.
They're kind of going through a transition right now, as I'm sure you're aware, and some balls are being dropped. So that's been my experience with them.
And I'll back that up. It's been, the way they've approached it is not what I've expected, based on my one other experience the first time with not this team. The first time I went through it was a different team. So I'm also trying to get clarity on that. And the leadership and the person who oversees the program, who I would expect to have those answers, just left on Friday. So it's, we've been sort of working through this one to try and get to a point that's a timeline that works for Steinmetz-Hill LLC, and then I'm anticipating a very long conversation with OCU in the near future.
Okay. One of the other areas of concern was that the projected revenues were highly ambitious. I tend to agree based on what I saw. A couple questions around that. I think you listed the median sale price in the county at 600 some thousand. I didn't see that when I did just basic search on Redfin, Realtor, etc. So I'm curious where that number comes from.
That comes from the multiple listing service.
Oh, okay. I also don't, in your financial workbook, it's unclear to me why your Working Communities Challenge and NAACP committee service are counted as income in this business.
Consulting.
I guess the disconnect I'm having is you're projecting a substantial amount of revenue right away in year one from realty sales and not demonstrating any actual profit in that line of the business right now.
Okay. So first of all, we had a baby last year, so I took some time off. I was supporting Ruth while she was doing some other work. And then also, we haven't had a marketing budget, which, as I'm sure you can guess, the first agent that you hear of is usually the first one that you work with. And since I don't have any money to tell people about myself, it's been a little slow going, mostly through networking events and speaking with people I already have done business with. And it will continue to go slowly until I can secure a big marketing budget, in which case, once the word gets out there, I think people are going to choose to work with us, based on my experience with other brokerages and just knowing the need out there.
I also wonder, from everything I hear from folks in real estate market, it is slow, prices are on a downward trend. There is like a little more movement, but it's still not substantial. And so you list in there like a number of sales in year 1 and 2. What gives you the confidence that those are accurate projections?
They're a small sliver of the actual total sales that go on. And the competition that you'll see, we have a competition page in there, and I'm trying to just kind of do as well or better than some of the minor players around here. I'm not trying to take on, Coldwell Banker in my first year, but maybe in my 10th, yeah. So I think I projected 16 sales in the first year, or 21 maybe. 15, excuse me. That number is skewed, changed quite a bit as I've gotten more realistic. So 15 is a number that I've done before, a couple of years after the 08 or 09 crash, so it wasn't a good time then either. It was just skewed in the opposite direction. It was more of a buyer's market. Now it's more of a seller's market. People sell houses every day, so it's just a matter of me being in the right place at the right time to be able to broker those deals.
And then the last question I had around the revenue is the line item for interior design. It sounds like from your business plan, a lot of that is tied to marketing to grow that customer base. And so I think in year 1, or yeah, by 2026, you would project having like 100,000 subscribers on YouTube. That's a significant increase from where you're at today. And I wonder how you think you get there.
Well, that's based on, again, my counterparts on YouTube and their rate of growth based on the posting cadence that they've set up. Most of them explode within the 3rd or 4th year and get to those kinds of numbers. We've already worked with or met with a couple of companies that help influencers, so to speak, gain traction in YouTube. And YouTube has actually changed their algorithm where they're focused more on this smaller scale influencers to promote them more than they used to. So there is a changing tide in the platform that is beneficial to someone like me.
Thanks. And then my last question, another concern area raised was around collections and owed taxes and not having a payment plan in place for those. So what's the status of that?
That's going well as something like that can go, I suppose. Our accountant recently, I actually tried to communicate with him today about this, but he took care of some back taxes that were in need of filing, and those have been complete to the best of my knowledge. And I'm just looking to follow up with him on that, and once that happens, a payment plan can be established.
Yes, IRS would not set up the plan until we completed
until we're up to date on the returns. So.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. That's it for me for now.
Okay.
Go ahead, sorry.
No. I think most of my questions are less for the two of you, so you can take a breath, and more just about the program in general. And I know I was unavailable due to a work event for the last time that we spoke about somebody applying for a loan, but I skimmed over the video, and I do believe the mayor shared my thoughts on that. And then it seemed towards the end of that discussion that there had been some direction to want to talk about the program in general as council. And clearly that hasn't happened before we're seeing a new loan. So apologies, this is coming up while you're here. This isn't revolving money, correct? This is it. It was appropriated by a council of years past.
It is revolving money, but there's no source to replenish it as it's
Right.
before the money revolves back in.
Right. So we're looking at being able to award $16,000 to the next business that applies. My concern with the last business was that we're doing the full amount. It's the same with this, that we're doing the full amount and leaving only $16,000 in the account. So I was hoping that we were going to have that discussion that it seemed like council was hoping to have before we saw another loan. The intention was to try to help, as many businesses as we could during that difficult COVID time. Obviously, we're outside of COVID time, but there's still businesses in need. And I feel like we've been taking these really big sledgehammers to this amount of money that is just dwindling. And I don't know, I think we should have paused and looked at what we had left before we continued moving forward. You mentioned that the committee isn't fully staffed. It's just staff right now. There's no community members on it. I think Melissa from downtown Winooski would be interested in being on it. There's only $16,000 left, so if we were to approve this at a full $75,000. Ideally I'd like to have that conversation and then look at this loan and any other loans. If folks don't have the appetite for that, and I feel bad because I don't necessarily know if it is because of the business itself, but I'm not comfortable awarding $75,000 when we only have $16,000 left. We've been told in the past when we were awarding these large amounts that there wasn't interest in the program. Well, there's so much interest in it, there wasn't even the conversation, there wasn't time for council to have the conversation about how we approach this program. So I think there is interest in it. So I'd like for there to be money left for somebody else who has a really good business idea. And that we don't have just $16,000 to offer or less if we want to try to make that spread a little further. So those are my thoughts at the moment.
Just want to chime in that it's actually less than 16 after accounting for almost $3,000 in annual fees that we have to pay the bank.
So even less money for any potential other Winooski business owners that would like to come in.
On the note about the program, I do think that we should bring this to the Finance Commission to analyze the performance of it. Like, what have we gotten from it? How have the loans performed? And come back to us with some recommendations if there's anything about the structure that should change or how we're approaching it or even what the priorities are. If folks are on board with that, we could do a motion at some point here to bring it to the commission for input before considering additional outlays. But we do still have this decision on for tonight.
No, I know. It seemed from what I watched when you all discussed that the conversation was asked to be had before we saw another loan. And that didn't happen, so.
Aurora?
Yeah, I also don't know if I specifically have questions, but I definitely jotted down some thoughts around this application. I do want to kind of start with where I think what I talked about last time, which is I feel like there are two separate issues here. One of them is this loan fund and how we've been using it, and the other is the application itself. And I don't want to penalize businesses for making use of something that we have just because of not having had either the foresight or on, like, I don't want to punish businesses for something that seems like an issue that would have hopefully come up previously. I don't know if I'm saying that quite right, but that is my concern about like the equity of being like, you know, giving a lesser amount, even $5,000, $10,000 doesn't really do a huge amount for the city situation, but it is very big for the businesses themselves. So kind of keeping that in mind. The other thing that I really wanted to highlight as someone who relatively recently went through the process of getting a condo specifically through Champlain Housing Trust, and just honestly, we wouldn't have been able to do it without the support of Opportunities Credit Union, which it sounds like they're with their change in personnel and their combination with their new partner, there might be some shifts and changes to that. But I cannot say how helpful it was to have someone in that position that it sounds like this business is trying to step into, of saying, okay, you've hit this barrier, what can we do to overcome it? And to kind of do that more holistic, thoughtful approach, especially targeting communities that don't necessarily have it. Like, it was very, very hard to get a Champlain Housing Trust mortgage at, you know, benefited mortgage for myself, and I have these various privileges, so I can only imagine how hard it could be someone where first-time homeowners, or English isn't their first language, all these different things, that it feels like there very much is a niche, especially with different partners, that I'm kind of excited to see a business try and fill in. And I do think the rental piece is really interesting. And I guess the one question I will end on specifically for the business is, have you thought about tapping into the college student market, as like some of the folks that are coming to UVM and Champlain and St. Michael's have families that probably would spend money as like an income source that could out or help subsidize doing those more thoughtful one-on-one housing conversations. Because I feel like, as someone who works at a college, I can't tell you how many times I've heard people talk about trying to figure out the housing situation in Burlington.
Yeah, I was a college student in Burlington long ago, so I feel that pain. But yeah, I definitely have thought about that. Parents investing in a housing for their kids and their friends, I think is what you're mentioning, right? Yeah, and then after 4 to 6 years, depending upon how long they're up here, they would sell it to help offset some student loans. Yeah, I can even teach a course about that. That would be really, I appreciate the thought.
Have you all considered, like, this is a very ambitious plan, going from home-based business with very little activity to a massive commercial space with several business focuses, income lines, and a lot of money needed up front. And you're relying on pretty much entirely external funding, not like a cash savings of your own. Have you considered a scaled back approach to how you expand your business that's slower over time versus this very large leap that's included in this plan?
We have, and do you want me to just speak on that?
Yeah, please.
We have, and it all boils down to the nature of our business being heavily reliant on foot traffic. and specific kinds of foot traffic. And so we have spent a lot of time looking up and down Main Street and the downtown core for viable locations. And we just kept settling down to the commodity space. It's in a residential mixed area. The hotel is coming up. It's gonna give us the visibility that we need to make the kind of impact that we need to make. And we understand that even with the brokerage, the agents are not gonna stay at the location full time, but for a design team, I need to have a studio for that. So we are really just limited with the kinds of locations that we can look into. And if we do wanna stay in Winooski, which is what we are trying to be invested in, we don't have a lot of options. In fact, I dare say
I think there's about 3 others currently. One of them is the new building on East Allen Street.
yeah.
That won't be available until July or August. And it's significantly smaller than it's 660 square feet. And then there's the one, I forget the name, the top of Weaver, that like industrial complex
Oh,
there.
yeah, that's,
No foot traffic. And also doesn't really scream, holistic housing. And then there's also the subway space, the former subway, that I've been talking to the owner about that for some time, but again, not great foot traffic except for high school kids that would want to come over for whatever reason, I don't know. So this is the most viable option. We did have an option to demise the space and split it in 2. The landlord would have to spend a lot of money to do that.
yeah.
And we would probably end up expanding into that space anyway. Just kind of taking over both sides eventually, just given the nature of what we're trying to do here. So I think really taking this big leap, as you described it, is a big leap forward in helping the community.
Follow-up question to that. There is the space between Howell and Standing Stone that's vacant.
Oh, right.
I know Howell wasn't
Oh,
looking to
yeah, we looked
occupy
at
the
that
whole
too.
space.
It's not awesome. It's pretty small and very dark. And even, I dare say, a little damp. Because you'll see the windows there are just kind of like quarter windows and the rest of it goes underneath. That used to be the second half of archives, which worked for their business model, but wouldn't really work for us. There's also the King James former boxing place that's available. Again, I mean, who walks over there besides people that are using the laundromat?
Yeah.
Not a lot of foot traffic. So it's important that we stay in the downtown core if there's, and like on the main level so that people see us.
And be next to complementary businesses.
Yes, thank you.
Because the one you mentioned is between a wine place and a bar. That doesn't help us. And, we mentioned in the committee meeting that, for instance, Slate is right next to Burlington Furniture because customers typically hop from one place to another when they're searching for furniture or, shopping around. So that's why businesses tend to stick together or be around similar industries.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to ask, if I may, Brandon, chime in. Just square footage percentage wise, what are you looking at as far as just showroom versus like brokerage offices? Are you going to be renting out space to other brokers? What does that look like? And then beyond that, how long until you guys break even on this particular revenue stream that you have? Because it seems like you've got a couple based on your website.
Yeah.
So that's kind of a combo question, but is it more of a showroom space for your designs and your creativity, or is it like a wealth building space and an education space? How does that break down, and how long do you think it would take to break even on those various projects in that space?
I think it's about 2/3 to a third, wouldn't you say? Or even 3/4 design and.
I'm trying to get in your head to
Yeah.
picture
Just
your
like-
business and picture dollar for dollar what this can and can't potentially do for not just you guys, but the city, if I'm
Yeah.
kind of guiding you through what I'm looking for?
It wouldn't have a lot of square footage for the real estate offices per se. We would have an assistant in there that would work for both of us, as well as some assistant designers. Real estate agents are kind of a unique beast, if I may. They tend to want to work wherever they happen to be, and they don't generally love going into offices, so I would probably create some touchdown spaces, like some desks that they could come and go as they pleased. And so long as they're hitting their targets, then I won't have to have a conversation with them. But of course, I would encourage them and support them.
But you would have like
Education.
steady, guaranteed income stream from that space, even if like it's a slow month for design sales and
Mhm.
consultants and such stuff.
So that's why
Okay.
the business is so diversified. Because, there's a walk-in that will be interested in purchasing some items from the store, as well as we can chat those folks up about any design questions that they may have if they're interested in moving here, especially with the hotel right around the corner. And there's a ton of rentals around there that we can support those folks into one day buying their own home. And right across the street, there's a bunch of homeowners that actually, that building has the Cascades has a decent turnaround. So once we're established in that location, I think the business is going to find us pretty well. And we also have an aggressive marketing plan.
Yeah. I'm gonna be straight with you guys. I love the idea of a supportive housing pipeline in Winooski, and it sounds like that's part of your model. I'll also say the housing market is really, really dramatically shifting. Over the course of the last couple of years, it's been up and down, and then up, and now it's back down again. Based on your blurb on your website, it sounds like you average 10 to 15 sales a year. Some of them are really big. What do you plan to do if that part of the business doesn't pan out the way you're anticipating? What's your contingency plan?
More consulting.
Okay.
Yeah, leaning heavily on education and waiting for the market to shift again, because it always does.
It does.
As well as hiring some agents that may do more sales volume than I do,
Right.
who are interested in helping more than they are earning money, because they maybe already earned all their money. Some folks that have got some experience but don't necessarily appreciate the salesmanship, I'll say, of other agencies.
Are you trying to take on agents as underneath your brokerage, or?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Mhm.
I think that's my question. Thanks, guys.
Did you have additional?
Aurora.
I have a follow-up question that I'm not sure who this exactly goes to. But if, say, we did award a lower amount, would that still give you access to the VITA and other income sources that you were talking about? Because that sounds like a really exciting opportunity to bring that money into Winooski.
I think the short answer is we don't know.
Yeah. Well, we know that community capital is definitely interested in coming in as a secondary.
Okay.
We're hoping to get this and then get a significant amount from VITA and then have community capital close out the balance.
Okay, that's really helpful. Yeah, thinking about it too, not just as the services you're bringing, but also in that piece of what's money coming back into the Winooski community.
I didn't hear during the committee meeting, and you might have covered this, the commodity space was a market, it has refrigerators. Are you proposing that as part of the fit-up cost that you would be removing the refrigerators?
No, part of our letter of intent with the landlords there was that they remove that for us. So that would be out of cost.
But as the design space, the transformation, the fit-up needs, the refrigeration would be removed?
Yes.
Okay. And then as a separate question, we are looking at significant corridor changes with another season of Main Street revitalization happening. Hopefully it wraps up in 26, 25, but it could roll into 26. The second phase of the Double Diamond Interchange is anticipated in 26, and then the bridge replacement is anticipated to start in 27, 28, and last a couple of years. So we do have a significant amount of change along the corridor that we know has already impacted a number of our businesses. How do you anticipate being able to weather one-way traffic from the bridge?
Do you want to speak to that?
Well, in terms of, we've been able to manage meeting with clients at their location, at a separate location, having Zoom call as the initial consultations. We've set up a lot of systems that are, AI enhanced, automated, virtual, that has enabled us to be able to essentially work from home. So we're very nimble and flexible in that aspect. And with being on the location really is to give us a sort of grounding in the market, or and a presence that can be felt. That is essentially what we're looking for. That's something that we haven't been able to achieve just working from home. And having a solid presence really will go a long way in keeping us top of mind in our customer base.
We're also dead in the middle of 900 apartments, so that helps. We're within walking distance of 1,500, 2,000 people, which is the bulk of the city, as you're well aware. So I feel like just the positioning of that space would be really useful.
And our shop aspect will also be online. We already have an online shop, so we'll just increase merchandise that's available online.
A question came up from a community member that maybe look at the economic vitality plan. What's it called?
Economic development plan.
Thank you.
Strategic plan.
And in it was, I couldn't help but notice that hardware was pretty high up in terms of community interests and needs. I don't know if you looked at that city plan and considered incorporating any of those products into your business plan,
By which you mean hammers and nails and things?
basically.
We could add basic hammers and nails and things. In terms of like table saws and stuff like that, probably not so much. The square footage likely wouldn't allow for that. But if they're looking to get the equivalent of like a gallon of milk from the street corner, I think that would.
Yeah,
We
you
could
think about
supply
the
something like
small, like, hardware Aubuchon's type shop that offer, outlet covers, hammers, nails, bulb replacement. I've been to the Target at a really popular time, which beginning of the school year, EVM, and the shelving is basically cleared out.
Yeah.
It
That
almost felt like
happened
it
to
was
us,
during
We made that
pandemic
mistake
times.
too.
Yeah, I did not know what I was getting myself into. But thinking about how many, to your point, how many students are walking from their dormitories, across the highway to make it over to Target, and thinking like, okay, well, we've got a decent population right here, close by, that also needs some of those basic home decor needs and basic home repair needs. So just thinking about revenue, reliable opportunities, as well as feedback that we've heard, it was definitely 7 years ago now, probably before that, since the report was dated 2017. But something that we know still is not really present within the community that certainly would help meet a gap, basically.
Yeah, so I think what Ruth has in mind, forgive me if I'm speaking over you, for the home decor aspect of it would be, a lot of it would be useful for fitting up a dorm room that's already furnished, as well as, I really like the idea of having here's your dorm survival kit with some light bulbs and things like that in there. And marketing exactly to that would be another great idea. We just, because I'd like to have my shelves cleared out like Target.
Yeah, we would like that too.
So we could certainly put up, especially with Spinner Place right next door, we could certainly put up signage and promote a welcome students campaign.
Yeah. And there are more businesses going into the mill building. So just thinking about opportunity of, not just the residents on Winooski Falls Way, but folks that are coming into the businesses, where being able to stop in for some small replacement items where they don't want to have to make it all the way over to one of the big box stores.
Mm-hmm.
So again, just thinking about opportunities, revenue, how you might be able to, how you've considered weathering some of the downturns that we know are already impacting our community, and that will continue for the next 5 years at least.
Yeah, to your point, there's seasonality in the real estate industry. Nobody wants to move in February. People do, but they don't want to. So for that time period, my expertise would probably be best on educating folks to get ready for the next season.
I want to ask you, so for 25 and 26, you have incredibly tight margins here. What do you do if you don't meet the revenue there? How do you maintain payment on this loan and your other financing?
Well, luckily we've got multiple streams of revenue. Most other places are, their one stream is sell tacos or what have you. So I think the diversification of the revenue is really a strong suit for us in terms of getting those things out there, as well as the employees that we'll get will also help us to be in multiple places at once.
Yeah. And we've also been approached by a couple of banks who want to extend us a line of credit. We just need to meet like a minimum threshold of like 50,000 in revenue, which is definitely feasible and realistic in the low earning months. We'll have reached that threshold. So that is a backup plan that we hope to pursue.
Well, I will say, I like your concept. I'm not as confident in the market as you are. I think this is really ambitious. I have concerns and would hesitate to approve this loan.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the loan of $50,000.
I'd love to hear from the Steinmetzes what that would do for them, if that's beneficial or not. And I do share the mayor's concerns with that comment.
Yeah, sure.
What would 50K do?
Not enough, but I guess we'd have to rework our budget and or hopefully secure it from another source. I'm curious to know if the balance weren't so low on the fund, where everyone would come out.
Personally, I think we can award between 5 and 75,000, and we've been doing 75,000. It seems arbitrarily. So, even if there was more money, I likely wouldn't want to do 75,000. Because when we talk about the purpose of this, we want to spread it out to as many folks as we possibly can. We're not a traditional bank, obviously. So the intention was helping and spreading a loan fund that most folks aren't accessible to get loans at all. And it sounds like you've all had some difficulty, but it also sounds like you've got another $200-something thousand coming your way if you can secure some money up front. There are some folks who only need $30,000 and they can't get that at all, and also have really great business ideas and a lot of dreams, and that to me is, you know, we need to think about that if we want to talk about the equity of the purpose of this loan. It was for that. So I'm not, you know, I'm not a fan of giving the minimum of $5,000 or the maximum of $75,000. I think we want to make it a stretch. So I hope that answers your question.
I'll second Thomas's motion.
We've got a motion by Thomas, a second by Charlie. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any
Aye.
opposed? Oh, we got 3 ayes. Any opposed? Any abstain?
I'll abstain.
Motion carries. 50,000 awarded.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Good luck, you guys.
Appreciate it. Good luck.
Wish you the best.
I have a question for council. So regarding Thomas's point earlier, so I'm not claiming it wasn't, mind you, but I don't recall direction from council. And
We did
neither-
not give clear direction. Can I
So
get
if you, yeah,
does someone want to make a motion to ask the Finance Commission to evaluate this program and bring recommendations back to council?
So moved.
Motion by Thomas, second by Charlie. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Motion carries. Thank you. All right. We will do that. If you want to leave, you can. If you want to stay for the meeting, you can as well. Feel free to walk out whenever you feel like it. Okay. We're on to item D. This is on for discussion, the update on replacement regulations.
We didn't take any community input on that last one.
Do we have any, though?
Connor's here.
It does, it's a moot point, but
Yeah. Thank you, though. I did forget since we didn't have anyone on there. All right. Oh, we're waiting for your counterpart. Hello. Okay, thank you.
Where should I start? So, as an update, last month the Planning Commission decided to pause discussions about requiring replacements of larger dwelling units when a property is redeveloped. In the memo, we've outlined the rationale for that. Just to go over the broader points of it, I think, at least for me, speaking reflectively, when I came into this position, learning about these discussions, it took me a really long time to grasp what exactly was the intent of council and the city. And during that time, I think I was like throwing spaghetti at the wall, trying to figure out what exactly the intent was and how to achieve it. And then kind of scratching a little deeper and doing a bit more research, I realized that there's not enough, at least to me, there wasn't enough information for me to provide proper guidance to the Planning Commission and Council on this matter. As noted, no other municipality has regulations like this. We haven't found any municipality that has regulations like this. The housing needs assessment that was done speaks about replacement unit regulations in a broader sense, but we thought that it was alluding to replacement unit regulations that are more common that prevent the conversion of housing into commercial. And those types of regulations that are like in Burlington and in South Burlington, whenever residential is converted to commercial, that unit has to be replaced in kind some way, somehow, not to replace housing types with housing types. We don't know the exact number of the housing stock by bedroom. We have a sense of the sample based off of the ACS data. And that gives us a very rough number of the bedrooms that's provided by the HFA. We know how many units there are approximately, but we don't know the breakdown of this. And I think Eric had some challenge finding this too when he was trying to present data last year to you, that he couldn't really, based on the tables and what I can infer, he couldn't really tell you the units based on bedrooms lost, but he could tell you how many we've been gaining. So we don't really have enough data to tell you that we're losing these many larger units over time. Looking back at the permit rolls, at the breakup of larger units, I only came across 5 potential projects that were breaking up larger units into multiple smaller units, which doesn't, to me, spell as a crisis, really. We're not seeing this mass change in our housing stock into larger to smaller, or trend lines over time. And this is throughout Eric's tenure as the planning director. I think overall, we have our work cut out for us, and I think Jasmine is leading that effort with the equitable housing needs assessment. I think that through that project, we'll get a better sense of the data that their team is working on, along with what the exact housing needs are. We have a lot of anecdotal data. We're just not able to convert that qualitative data into quantitative data just yet. And I think that hopefully we can come back to you and come back with stronger recommendations based off of stronger data.
I will add too, like the planning commission also was kind of stuck without having clear data to work with. And I think some of the risks raised in here regarding compromising values in sales, slowing or stopping growth if we're too aggressive. I think those are real risks that we really don't know where we're at. And based on the developer roundtable feedback, one was, I'm not seeing a lot of 3-bedroom or larger in properties I redevelop, which would go towards we don't know what the trend is there. But the other side, hearing how costly and difficult the development of 3-bedroom or larger units is, both from for and nonprofit developers, there's clearly a potential huge financial impact that could become a barrier to further housing growth. So I think the conversations we've had through the commission's work have supported this, that we're really not in a good position to make solid decisions right now. Aurora, I see your hand.
Yeah, I appreciate that context. I think a concern that I have is that, and this is looking at the city council historically too, is that we can get concerned about stopping development with doing this work that's specifically supposed to protect our residents, especially around housing and the type of housing that we need. And it never has panned out. So I think I find it really frustrating that we try and predict the future in a way that always benefits the developers and never try and predict the future in a way that benefits our residents, our renters, our homeowners. So that's kind of my general concern with pausing this. I also, what some of the data in here was say that we only saw 5 permits come through, but 5 permits is big in Winooski. When we're this small, and again, 5 permits, how many units is that? That could be a lot more units than just say 5 individual houses. So to me, that's not really, that kind of rang, not false, but I feel like that number underestimates the amount of impact that those many units use. I also wonder about looking at data nationally and even internationally. Winooski is very unique for Vermont and very unique for New England. So maybe if the data is the issue, maybe we need to look farther. And I'm also always comfortable with Winooski leading the way in being more equitable, especially when it comes to our housing, especially when we're thinking about, not to bring up the school, but we have this big school building and we're seeing a student decline because people are being pushed out of the city. And one of the reasons they're being pushed out of the city is developers have decided to crank up the prices. And, to do that for all units. So I don't know. While I like the idea of getting some additional data from the equitable housing assessment, I also am concerned about just completely putting this aside for those reasons.
Aurora, I'd like to address two of the statements you made. First, that this pause benefits developers and not renters in the community. I would disagree. I think if we advance this without sufficient data to understand what we're doing, and we create a barrier that stops all new housing development, then we have stopped adding housing units to our city when we know there's a need, and we are also increasing demand on the existing limited quantity that will further exacerbate rent prices increasing. And I wanted to clarify, Revi, the 5 permits you saw was over Eric's tenure here, so like
Yes.
5+ years?
6+.
6+. Okay.
Yeah, and this is specifically for the internal parcelization of units, right? So it's just internal conversions, not redevelopment of properties. So this would be taking, hypothetically, for example, a 3-bedroom unit and creating two units out of a 3-bedroom unit.
Yeah.
Which I would say has, positives and negatives, because we do need an increase in a sheer number of units, and trends in Vermont as a whole are showing that most people are overhoused. Obviously, that's part of what makes this conversation difficult for Winooski, is that we're seeing very different demographic trends than most of Vermont is. We need a very specific type of housing. And it's not that we don't think that that isn't true, and we haven't heard, we've heard it from a lot of residents, but we're just not sure enough on the depth and the breadth of that issue. And the, zoning regulation changes take a very long time, and they are, of course, nothing is permanent, but they are fairly close. So, if you consider something like inclusionary zoning, where we do have data, we have data on, how long the wait lists are for Winooski Housing Authority vouchers. We have data on the amount of Vermonters that are rent burdened. We have, a plethora of data on that subject, but we just don't have as much on 3+ bedroom units. So we don't want to demand or regulate that property owners replace that type of units when we aren't 100% sure, like, do we need 10, 3+ bedroom units, or do we need 100? We're not sure at all at this point. And I would say also a step further, it's not, in most cases, it's not a 3-bedroom apartment unit that we a lot of the stories that we're hearing about, it's like a 6-bedroom affordable unit that is needed. So less so even a 3-bedroom market rate unit, which is, kind of difficult to navigate that as well in the lens of, like, we're also working on inclusionary zoning, and while they are separate, it would be unwise of us to not look at the impact that they would have together, and it would be quite a bit of an impact if those were both passed at the same time, I think. Especially since we've kind of come to the realization that it's not necessarily 3+ bedroom units, it's affordable 3+ bedroom units that we need, because 3+ bedroom units, there are some on the market in Winooski, and they are not being rented. That's just what we heard at the developer roundtable, is that they don't see turnover for those units very quickly, since those are going to be like $2,500, $3,000, like if it's a new build. So what we really need is, opportunities like the Armory, where we can really say, hey, we need to build 4 5-bedroom affordable units, because I think that's what we see the acute need for. But again, we're not 100% sure if that's 10 families that are very vocal, or if it's 200. Hopefully the equitable housing needs assessment will bring more data for that. I've sent kind of all of these memos and updates to the UVM team, and just notified them that that is a specific data point that the city is really in need of. So hopefully it wouldn't be a permanent tabling, but we did explore it, because of course you know, that doesn't mean Winooski can't be the first to do something like this, because we do have very unique needs. But I think the further along we got, the more uncomfortable we felt with what the potential repercussions could be, and the fact that we just didn't have much data. If we had data, then, you know, sure, we can be bold and be the first to do something. But we had just concerns about it.
And we are still pursuing inclusionary zoning.
Yes.
That's helpful context to have. Though I will push back a little bit on literally like decade of Winooski being like, oh no, what if developers stop coming if we do this XYZ thing? And it's never happened. So I'm always skeptical about that argument. I acknowledge things are always changing and shifting, but that argument is, I'm always very skeptical of it because developers want to develop and they will.
Can I ask a question about the joint meeting in November? Was that recorded?
I believe it was. I mean, they all should be.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking.
I think you were on the.
I'm trying to remember if Steve was there. That's what I'm really trying to remember.
I don't
I think
think
it
so.
was an owl, so I don't think Steve was there.
Okay.
I don't operate the owl.
So
Okay.
it was probably recorded.
It was probably recorded, but the sound quality might be
Yeah,
shaky.
I attended live. The sound
Yeah.
quality is definitely.
Yes.
Mhm.
But I wonder if it would be beneficial to share the recording. Are you okay?
Very dry. There's no humidifier here.
Poor Thomas.
No, I feel like I need to check on you before I keep talking.
I
Sorry.
appreciate that.
Wondering if it would help share the link for the recording. It obviously not obviously, sorry. While I was attending the meeting, I noticed that the CHT representative was maybe the furthest from the computer, furthest from the owl, I think.
Oh, Amy, yeah.
Mhm.
And they had some insights that I think validated some of the for-profit developers, which I was not expecting. And I know that I try to go back and rewatch some previous conversations to jog my memory. I think that is one where it would be beneficial. That was a really robust meeting.
Yeah.
And if a recording is available, that would be great to share that.
Okay.
Okay.
We can circle back.
Yeah.
Do you have a timeline for when the needs assessment will be ready?
Good question. So they're working on phase 1 right now. They being UVM, Center for Rural Studies.
Yep.
And so I imagine we'll check in about that at the end of this month. And then they will need to generate reports. So I imagine we'll probably start phase 2 late spring, early summer. But again, we're doing a collaborative process, so I'm not 100% sure what the data collection is going to look like and what the timeline for that will be. I know it will probably go longer than 2026.
So it will not be ready until 2026.
Depending on the data collection and how fast UVM's able to do it. I can't say because
Is it grad students?
No. It's their full-time faculty.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
We also have a local partner.
Yeah. It's really just like figuring out how the local partner and UVM, how they're going to mesh,
Uh-huh.
which is kind of a new thing that we're doing. So that's why it just takes more time to do it in a more like equitable way. So I don't have a firm timeline at this point, but we will be asking for an extension from the grant. But it'll be a little bit of time. It's not going to be this year.
Is there any way to indicate a preferred deadline?
Because we're trying to do it in essentially a trauma-informed way, I would not recommend that, because part of what the discussion with the local partner is that this community has been asked about their housing needs a lot. And housing is a source of trauma, as we found in the equity audit. And so if we're going to do this in a really thoughtful way, that might take time. It might actually be faster because we have a lot of data already, but I wouldn't want to predetermine the timeline. That's actually the opposite of being trauma-informed.
Fair enough.
And my computer just died, so I'm going to have to go get a power cord.
But I mean, if that is a piece of data that is collected, I don't think maybe we don't need to wait for the report to be drafted for 6 months. Maybe we pull that data and start looking at it again as an important piece to look at earlier. But
Yeah, I was asked as recently as Friday what's happening with some of the new construction that's going up in the city right now, and asked specifically how many of the units were family-sized housing, and why the city wasn't working harder to ensure family-sized housing. And it's really hard to not give a good quality answer. And that it's a complex problem. We're not the only ones facing it. But it is on the top of mind of the community.
yeah, I understand that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it is unfortunate, but I completely understand why. I'll echo what you're saying about Champlain Housing Trust. Like when they even said at that event that it was difficult for them to build, or I don't think they said difficult, I think they said they can't build affordable 3 or 4 bedrooms. That's hard to hear because we know that we need them. I do appreciate you wanting to know how many of them we exactly need before we mandate it. But it's hard because we know that we do, right? Like we definitely know that there are people who are in need of that. Maybe when a house comes on the market that is, 4 bedrooms, it's $600,000. So it doesn't exactly help the folks who need it. Because you hear a lot of people talking about, if we can free up those big old houses, if the older folks who live there can move out, if we build homes for them, that will help some people, but doesn't help the folks that we're trying to help with this. But it's, it is good to know that UVM is working on getting the data that you all need.
I would add to, for community members, our pursuit of the Armory property is our most tangible pathway to get some of that necessary housing. And that is something that we continue to be focused on and high priority.
Yeah, at this point, it's very difficult to mandate a for-profit developer develop in a specific way that is not in alignment with a way that they are going to make money. The only way for us to really, or for someone who is developing a property to be able to do that is through public subsidy, which is essentially CHT. That's why they really are the only ones that are able to pursue a project like that, because the numbers are so tight at this point for a for-profit developer that adding even just a couple of 3-bedroom units when, the market is not particularly hungry for them, not affordable, it just kind of makes projects not pencil out. So I wish it wasn't the case, and I wish we had more public subsidy, but.
Well, I would also add something that CHT has been discussing is reviving a program they used to have where they would identify opportunities to buy single-family homes, duplexes that already exist, and then convert that into permanently affordable housing. So, the city isn't alone in trying to fill this gap, and there are other angles being worked on.
During the joint meeting in November, tax abatement was brought up. I don't know really anything about it.
We've been exploring it. I don't think right now. I think we would have to pursue a charter change in order for us to be able to do that. Burlington does it, but they have it in their charter, and they have a board. What is the housing? Do you know what it's called? The housing. They have a specific housing board that has the authority. They also review security deposit issues. And so we wouldn't be able to do that at this point. We did reach out to VLCT. They're staff attorney, and at this point, that's more utilized for commercial only, or
It's
not even mixed.
It's very limited. Our tax abatement
Yeah.
authority is only on the municipal side,
Right.
and it's only up to, I think, a value of 300,000. So,
And it said in here, it's like, in terms of the percentage break, my notes, it says 75% is state, 25 is local.
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, there was the example that was shared at that meeting was not an accurate example.
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
yeah.
Yeah.
I appreciate it.
Yeah.
We did do some.
Yeah, we
looking
did-
around
we did
about
some due
that
diligence
and
about that and
the
asked a bunch of
municipality, and
people.
we're like, how did you guys do this? And they're like, we didn't.
Yeah.
Okay,
So,
thank you for fact checking.
which I think we've discussed maybe talking about that as a legislative priority idea of, maybe that's something that should be discussed as like, a tool that municipalities could be able to use. But, there's a lot on there already.
Maybe next year.
It's also tricky. Our revenue sources are also limited.
Right, yeah, I think there's a lot. Wouldn't be a quick conversation.
Any more questions on this item?
So I see this on as discussion only and not discussion approval. So,
Right, my thought was just to get direction from council. If you want us to keep working on it, you can so direct. But our point is we were just giving an update because we don't think we should move forward until we have the data.
Well, yeah, and it was also the planning commission's direction or
Yeah.
choice to not move forward with it right now.
Okay. We will move on to item E. Thank you. Jasmine, you're excused. Revi, you're going to say. This is on for discussion approval, new public rights of way, consideration and naming.
Okay. So with this, there are going to be 2 new rights of way for the city. So with the development of Lot 7D, we all call it Lot 7D. It's on the corner of Abenaki Way and Winooski Falls Way. I think many of you might have seen the steel girders going up. It's part of the parking garage that was permitted in late summer, early fall. As part of that project, there are 2 new rights of way. One on the north part of that parcel, which is in between the parking garage and VCC, along with an extension of Winooski Falls Way. So with that, there is a process that you would have to take as council to accept these rights of way as public. And then a second process to name the new roadway that is in between the parking garage and VCC. So the first part of the process of accepting the new rights of way would involve you reviewing the location of the proposed rights of way and determining whether to move forward with the development of the public street during a public hearing. That public hearing has to happen at least 30 days in advance to review and receive public comment. And then after that, within 60 days, you would review the layout, the survey, and determine and then report on your findings. And then the survey and the report and your decision would all be recorded accordingly afterwards. The naming process can happen anytime after that, just by simple resolution. The proposed name is Community Way. The developers proposed this out of deference to VCC. We've checked this name with dispatch and with fire, and it doesn't conflict with their operations, and it's according to E911 standards. So at this point, I think I should probably turn it over to you for possible dates. I don't know what possible dates there are for the public hearing.
Yeah, what's the soonest we could?
You're saying 30 days from...
At least 30 days, yeah.
You have to warn it 30 days ahead?
Yeah, so
Okay.
the earliest meeting would probably be like the first March meeting, I'm thinking.
First March meeting, okay.
Yeah.
Let me, we do have a draft schedule if council decides to keep the same pattern as in previous years. Give me a minute.
Mhm.
So March 10th would be the organizational meeting, again, assuming past practice. Then there's March 17th, April 7th, April 21st.
I would lean to the 17th and not putting a public hearing on the organizational meeting.
Yep.
But before we get to that action, questions for Revy about this item?
So Molly's Way was the last public right away?
It wasn't public, it was private.
That is private.
Yes.
Okay.
So you simply named it.
So why would we want this to be a public right away?
It is a public right of way.
Well, one of the two
Or
rights
should be.
one of the two rights of way is public. The new one, Community Way, would provide public access to a public parking garage. So I think it would be in our best interest to provide it as public, but I'll defer to Elaine about that too for facilities.
So are there two different entrances or exits to the garage, or just one?
3, I think.
I think they're at
One
three.
on
I think
each level, I
there's-
believe.
Yes,
Yes.
correct. And then I think it's one behind. So,
No elevators.
Yeah.
Oh.
exactly.
Mhm.
Actually.
Thank goodness.
Less
Okay, I'm a
maintenance.
fan.
Thought you'd like that.
Yeah. That's fine.
Yeah. So Molly's Way is, it's surrounded by private property,
Yeah.
whereas
Yeah.
this is between two private properties, so, and then the access to a public.
Yeah, my experience is like, it's a driveway to access
No way.
dumpsters right now, right?
Correct.
Correct,
So
right
that's
now.
why I'm like trying to understand, why would we want to have a public right of way to access private dumpsters
Right.
and maintain it and have that be under the tax roll?
Yeah,
So
that sounds terrible.
that's where why that question came up.
Well, and the extension of Winooski Falls Way has the Cassavant access.
Right.
Yep.
Which has concerns for me too. Large tractors making their way around the circle, the turning radius. Sorry, plows.
Oh.
Plows.
Oh, in here?
I was picturing
Like
a
in front of
semi
it?
down there, and I was like, I don't know how that's gonna work. Plows
I-
makes way more sense.
Like, I don't know what, I don't, I know the, our fire department has looked at it and they seem to confirm that it will not be an issue, but I don't know if they were looking,
You're talking about like the little rotary
Yeah.
space in front of the building?
yeah, the turning radius, like, are we plowing that?
If we
That's
pub-
that's
I
the
would-
is that the private through?
Yeah, if it's,
Yes. I would think we would plow that.
we are maintaining it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm
So
trying
have
to
we- has
text Joshua
John-
to come on.
Confirmed the turning radius for the plows in that rotary?
I mean, we must have, because that's.
Yeah.
Well, it is all parking here. So I think that if we're doing a no parking,
I
right, a
see.
ban, that should
I
help
was thinking
them.
this was
Mhm.
curbing.
Just this, yeah.
No.
That's all parking right
Yep.
there.
So, I don't know, like, when we were talking about changing the sidewalk permits for downtown and concerns with emergency vehicles,
Mhm.
Mhm.
I'm just thinking about, you can get the trucks in and out, but with plowing, one would think they would need to go around the rotary, so.
It's probably one of those raised bumps. so
It's
they
it's
can
a
drive on
cul-de-sac really. It's a mountable curb.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right,
it. Mountable, that's it.
so it's not
Mm-mm.
an ornate
Yeah.
centerpiece.
No.
No fountain.
I mean, I don't know. I can't tell from the
Yeah.
No more fountains.
Sorry, Aurora, I see your hand. Yeah, no fountains.
Yes, no more fountains.
Oh, you're on mute still.
Sorry. I've been up since 3:15, so.
Ooh.
My brief question was just, it sounds like the developers named this an acknowledgement to CCB. Was CCB asked?
I would assume so. Like, they talked to them quite a bit throughout
Okay.
the project.
Yeah,
All right.
Can't confirm, but
yeah.
I guess if there's a community meeting, they can let them know.
all right. Any other questions? Can I have a motion to set a public hearing for March 17th for new public rights-of-way consideration and naming?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Bryn, second by Thomas. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Motion carries. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. That is the end of this evening's agenda. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Thomas, second by Bryn. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Meeting adjourned. Get some rest, Aurora.
Thank you, I'll try.
I'm trying to
Drop the ball.
find